I started a business and I was able to quit my 9 to 5 and grow my business to $250,000 every single year in 2 years. And on this channel, I'm gonna show you exactly how I did it. Maybe you also want to quit your 9 to 5. I started a production and photography company. Maybe you also want to start a production and photography company. I don't know, but I'm gonna bring you along the process and I hope to help someone along the way. Stick around. This is my first YouTube video, so you don't know who I am. My name is Jorge Coxach, and I own a production company and photography company in the Treasure Coast in South Florida. Although, if you say that to people that live here, they won't like you calling the Treasure Coast South Florida, but southern area, southern eastern Florida. And I want, the idea behind this channel is to show you my process and teach you the things that I know. What gear to get, what things to buy, how to actually go about starting a business, how to make it successful, the things that I did. Maybe, you know, it won't work for everybody, but definitely the things that I did that were helpful for me, the things that I learned along the way, and the things that, of course, I wish I knew sooner in order to start my production company and to be more successful faster. So, yeah, that's what this channel's about. There's a logo for my company. It took me 5 minutes to make with ChatGPT, because your logo doesn't matter. You matter. Who you are matter. So, what are we going to do in this video? I'm going to, in this video, show you 3 things. Number 1, number 2, number 3. The first thing I'm going to show you is, first thing we're going to talk about is why I started a video production company. The second thing I'm going to talk about is how I chose a video production company. The third thing is going to be, how did I get customers for the first time? So how I went from nobody knows who I am to I became the one that people were recommending left and right. How did I do that? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in this video. And I'm not going to erase it because I need to reference it for later. All right, and I need to go get an SD card for my drone. I crashed my drone recently, and I had to replace my drone. With the drone, I also lost a really good memory card. Amazon no longer has it, so I have to find an alternative solution. So I'm on a journey to find that card as well. SD cards are these little chips that you put inside devices that record, in my case, for my drone. And the drone records 4K video, which is very high quality video, very large files. And it also requires a very high read-write speed for the card. I need to get a new SD card because all of the micro SD cards I have, they don't write fast enough. And when you're flying a drone and you're shooting in 4K, you need to have a card that writes really, really fast so that the drone is able to do everything that it has to do. And so, as for whatever reason, Amazon no longer carries the card that I prefer. It's a SanDisk card. It's 200 megabytes per second, write speed, super fast. And at the time that I bought it, they had it for only 25 bucks. It was an amazing deal, you know? I have bought about 4 of them since I started my company. But when I went back to get one, they no longer had it. So now I gotta go figure out an alternative, you know? I'm gonna start with like Target and Walmart because, you know what, I should go to Sam's. I'm gonna start with Sam's, then Walmart, because I also have to get some water. But the point there is, you know, these things happen, you know, expenses happen, unexpected things happen in business. And one of the things that I've learned is just you have to be able to respond to stuff that happens, because it just, things will come up. Things will go wrong. But like you have to be able to come up with solutions. So thinking quick on your feet, that's very important. So let's talk about why. Why did I start a business? Well, I started a business because I hated my job. That's not very deep, right? That's not really giving a lot of big motivation and context and any of that stuff. But it's the truth, man. I hated my job. I hated working where I worked. I worked at a call center, and I was taking escalations. So like whenever people called and complained and the supervisor couldn't handle the call, they would then pass over the call to me. And I wasn't like a higher management or anything like that. I was just another supervisor. But I was able to calm people down for the most part. They called me Mr. Buttersworth because, you know, I was able to put that syrup on the call and de-escalate the situation 9 out of 10 times. I couldn't do all of them. That wasn't perfect, but I was able to get a lot of calls calmed down. But I hated that, man. I hated that. You know, it was like being in jail. You know, I had left my professional career in New Jersey. We had moved to Florida to be closer to my wife's family. And, you know, once I got here, we had savings, but we were burning through the savings, and I needed to start making money. So I had another job prior to that one, but I ended up working at that call center, and every single day was just an absolute dread. I hated going to work. I hated getting up in the morning. The thing that I hated putting my phone in a locker. I hated asking somebody permission to use the bathroom. But what I hated the most was I would go in so early that the sun wasn't up yet, and I would leave so late that the sun was already down by the time that I got out. That was just so depressing to me, because I'm like, I'm over here living in the Sunshine State. I'm over here, you know, in such beautiful warm weather, and I'm stuck at this job that, you know, it's just ridiculous. You know, it wasn't far from me that I was spending all this time building somebody else's business, and I was doing all of this effort. And even if I got my boss's job, which would take several years to do, but even if that happened, I wouldn't be making a lot of money. All right, so they don't have the card that I need here at Sam's. I need an SD card that records at least 170 megabytes per second so that the drone can record 4K. If it's slower than that, they had one that was 150 megabytes per second here, which is not bad, but it's gonna choke with recording 4K drone footage. Still have to get water here, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab that. And then we'll head over to Walmart and see if they have one. I mean, quite frankly, it's probably a stretch. I probably won't be able to get it in any stores around here. Where's Radio Shack when you need it, right? But the crazy thing is that it's not even available on Amazon. you know? So, you know, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. These are just, as they say, par for the course, right? These are just things that happen when you own a business. You know, you have challenges, you have fires to put out, challenges you face, and they happen on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis. You've got to be willing and ready to respond. So, we're out here. So we're 0 for 2 at Sam's. They didn't have the water that I was looking for, and they also didn't have the memory card. I knew the memory card was going to be a stretch, but I figured, you know, they might have it. And in the off chance that they did have it, I knew it would be a better deal to get it there. So, they didn't have it. It's all good. So, not being able to see this beautiful sun, not being able to enjoy, and also just the frustration of, you know, no matter how much I climb this ladder, and I can climb. I was promoted to supervisor right out of training. So I knew I'd be able to climb. But I also knew how much my boss made, and I knew how much his boss made. And I thought, man, can I do this for 2 years? Can I, just crunching the numbers, I need to make X amount in order to be able to provide for my family. But also, you know, I was in my mid-30s at the time, early 30s, mid-30s. Like, but also, I want to be able to have a certain lifestyle in these years of my life. I want to have a particular life. I want to put my kids in baseball, for crying out loud. Little kids at the time, you know? And I knew that I wouldn't be able to do that where I was currently at. And so that desperation and just overwhelm with the fact that I was able to foresee what was going to happen in the next 5 years, and at the end of that 5 years, it wasn't something that was appealing to me. That's what led me to say, I'm not doing this. Like, something's got to change. And I thought, well, what if I start a business? The question was, what kind of business would I start? All right, so we talked about why, and now let's talk about how. Check mark, red check mark, because do I have a green marker? I might have a green marker, but red check mark for now. That was why I started a business. How did I choose the business to get into? Let's talk about that next. All right, I'm at Walmart, but before I go inside, how did I decide what business to get into, right? I use something called the 777 format, and I didn't come up with this. I actually learned this from Pat Flynn. I was watching YouTube videos because I was desperate, y'all. I wanted to get out of the situation I was in. I did not want to be stuck in that job for the rest of my life, and I definitely needed to make more money. So the 777 format, what it is it talks about 7 problems, 7 passions, and 7 hobbies. Now, this is how I remember it. Quite frankly, it could be other 7 things, but I'm pretty sure it's 7 problems and passions. I'm just not sure about the hobbies part. So anyway, it was 777. And what I did was I listed 7 problems that I was facing. I listed 7 hobbies that I had at the time, and I listed 7 passions that I had. And so the exercise goes, you list each one, and then you pick from each one, which one stands out, and where they all intersect. And all of that intersected with a skill that I had been developing for a while, which was Facebook ads and video production, which wasn't something that I had gone to school for, but it was something that I was passionate about. It was a problem that I was able to solve because I had learned Facebook ads for something unrelated to work. It was just a hobby at the time, but, oh, hobbies. So, you know, I had learned how to do Facebook ads, I had learned how to run ads in general, and I had learned how to shoot video. And so that became the thing where it was like, oh, you know, I'm gonna do video production and I'm gonna do Facebook ads, and I'm gonna help businesses grow with Facebook ads and video. So that was my 1-2 punch for my business. That's how I chose it. But marketing is a very competitive world. I found that out real quick. So I chose video production and marketing because, quite frankly, that was just what I knew how to do at the time, and it was a good skill. It was a reasonable, useful skill. I thought it would be very helpful, and it ended up being very helpful for the local businesses. You know, the town that I moved into wasn't too far advanced in that world, and I had come from a place that was further along in that world, so I had developed those skills, and I was able to help businesses, you know. And you know, I saw a lot of videos at the beginning that were very discouraging, because they were like, you know, if you're gonna get into a business, don't do marketing, because marketing is very competitive, it's very challenges, and you know, 79% or whatever it is, like a very high number of businesses that start fail, and you know, people just don't do what, you know, they don't succeed in whatever business that they decide to do. So it's like, don't start one, don't do it. But I'm a knucklehead and very hard-headed, so I did it anyway. Hopefully they have something I can use here with the SD cards, because, you know, I mean, Sam's had it, but not as fast as I needed it. The next stop, if they don't have it here, would be Best Buy. And, you know, they might actually have it, but Best Buy has crazy markups on stuff. And yeah, I don't want to pay crazy markups for something that I can get for a lot less. Because remember, initially, right, the card we got was 25 bucks. So I know I'm probably not going to get that anywhere around here. So like, even if I do find one here in Walmart, I probably won't get 25 bucks. But I want to be as close to that 25 bucks as I can. Right? That'd be cool. So we'll see. We'll see what we can find. Walmart's got these Skytrek drones. I'm a licensed drone pilot now, but I've never used them. And I wonder if they're any good. Here are the cards. See, the hard part about all of this isn't finding read speeds that are fast. Like this one has, this is On, it's the Walmart brand. It has read speeds of 175 megabytes per second, and it's 128, which I don't need a big card. You know, just 64 gigabytes is enough, right? But the write speed is slow. And if the write speed is slow, like this one is 100 megabytes per second, it's $23, right? But the write speed is 50 megabytes per second, which is very underpowered. And I can't use that for the drone. You know, it just won't work. So this is a micro SDXC card by On. And again, the read speeds are 175 but I don't see anything about the write speeds. Ultra fast, extra storage. Yeah. So that's the challenge that we have. 4K UHD, it says. Read speeds, 2 micro SDX cards, 4K USB, but it's not hitting that read speed that we need. Sorry, write speed. There's one here for $60 that has 170 write and 250 read, which I think is what we're gonna end up going with right here. This guy, but 60 bucks. Just a lot more than I wanted to spend on this solve, but that's what we gotta do. All right, so it turns out I made a mistake. I don't need 170 write speed. I just need 90. I went back on Amazon and I looked at my purchase, and it turns out that that's all that I needed. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab this ONN, which is Walmart's, like Walmart brand card that writes at 140 and reads at 175. This is 128 gigabytes capacity, which means the Sam's one would have worked actually in this situation. So I don't know, you live and you learn, then you get loves, right? Now I need somebody to come unlock this for me so that I can get it. All right, so this might be the solution, this card here that we got. We're gonna go test it out to make sure that we got the right card, because at the end of the day, they could say whatever they want to say in the packaging, but if the drone decides, no, I don't want to work, then it won't work with this card. So we are going to test it, make sure that it works, make sure that we can record the 4K footage, and be back in business. Scam Likely, my most faithful follower. On me like white on rice. So yeah, you know, I was flying a drone in Miami, and I was over the water, and I had bought these cheap batteries for my drone, thinking that I would save some money on the batteries, because, you know, every little bit counts, right? And the battery failed midair. Drone fell right on the sidewalk, hit the concrete, then went into the water, and took my really fast SD card with it. You know, not to mention that I had to replace a very expensive piece of equipment. So I actually felt really bad that day. You know, business can be lonely sometimes, and this is gonna sound stupid, but I had named the drone. So I was actually very sad that I lost the drone to begin with. So, but this kind of stuff happens. Drones fall out of the sky, equipment breaks, you have to replace it. So I did. Let's go test it. Turns out I do have a green marker here. All right, so we talked about why. We talked about how I chose the business that I chose. But having a business doesn't mean you're automatically gonna get clients, right? Even if you have a very good business, you have to get clients, right? It sounds so silly even to say it. So let's talk about how I went about getting clients, because that is an interesting story in and of itself. And I'm actually here at a client, and I'm gonna get some drone footage with my new SD card, test the footage, test the card at the same time while I'm getting the footage. Amazing. All right, so I'm gonna test this micro SD card to see if it works with the drone. I left it in the front seat. Hold on. All right, let's see if this SD card actually works with this drone. And specifically what we want is for it to record video, right? I don't care if it can shoot photos or not. A lot of cards can do that. But if it can shoot video, that's kind of what we want here. Look at that, I'm an influencer. I'm an influencer. I haven't blocked my face. It never bracketed the focus anyway, so guess I'm not an influencer. Just felt the raindrop falling on my head. All right, so this is the drone. We're gonna get it ready, get it up in the air. SD card slot. It's gonna pop it in there and put a battery inside. Now, whenever I'm flying the drone, I always start with the drone itself before I power on the controller. Got a mat. We're gonna power on the drone and let it get its satellites. The drone has to connect to at least 10 satellites, sometimes more, sometimes less, in order to be able to fly with the controller. So, also, this is really annoying, but like this connects to my phone, right? But because this is a newer phone, these things press on the buttons and deploy Siri or take a photo, wherever it is, when I don't want it to. It's really, really annoying. So I gotta like have it askew, you know. The solution is just to get like the controller that has the screen built into it. But I already have this one, and I don't want to get it if I don't have to. So the drone has 20 satellite connections. We're gonna go to the SD card and we're gonna format that. So I'm formatting the SD card, and normally at this point I would get a notification saying that the SD card is too slow, but I haven't gotten that notification yet. Let's go fly the drone, see what's up. All right, so I'm gonna test this card to see if it's fast enough to do what I need it to do. In this case, to record drone video. So we'll see. So when the drone is connecting to the satellites, it won't let you get up that far if it's not connected to at least 10 satellites. Sometimes it's less, but for the most part, I've noticed that 10 is like where it starts to
home point updated.
Go green. It's red and then it's yellow. So let's get some video footage. So I'm 72 feet up in the air. In this area, usually 72 feet is like plenty. where you're not gonna hit anything because it's so flat, and then there's just so little that is pretty high up. And in fact, I think where I live in this city, there's a restriction on how tall buildings can be, and so you know you're not gonna hit anything really high up. So I'm recording in 4K, 60 frames per second, and the drone seems to be doing just fine with no interruptions, no jitters, no lags. So SD card, good. You know, the crazy thing is that I thought I needed a much bigger card than I got. And I thought I needed that card because I thought I misunderstood, but it turns out this one's just fine. The right speed on this one. Oh, stuck the landing, baby. Oh, that feels good. So, yeah, but I had made a mistake with the SD cards. So I only needed 90 right speed. That was much easier to find. It was $35 versus $25, which is a little bit more than what I initially paid on Amazon, but it wasn't that bad, quite frankly. And it's much larger than the other cards that I had. I wanted to just get 64 gigs, but the right speed on those was just too slow. I think it was just like 50. So, but anyway, this card worked. Drone is flying just fine, recording 4K just fine, and problem solved, right? That's how business goes. That's how it is sometimes. It's got to solve problems. So starting the business wasn't the hard part, you know. Like even deciding what I wanted to do wasn't that challenging. The hard part was getting customers. That was challenging. That was very challenging, especially because, you know, if you don't have customers, your business doesn't have life, right? Because you have no cash flow. You need money to run a business. You need money to buy equipment. You need money to run ads. You need income, right? You need revenue for the business. And we needed to pay rent. We needed to buy food. We needed to pay for, you know, whatever we needed, our bills and all of that stuff. So like we were in need fast of clients and of work, you know. And so I started by cold calling. You know, I would prospect by looking at these little penny savers. Well, back in my day, we called them penny savers, but they're these little magazines that you'd get at the supermarket, and it had clippings and savings and coupons, but it had a bunch of ads as well. And so, you know, in fact, some of those clippings and savings and coupons were ads, right? So like you have all these companies that are already paying for ads and paying for marketing, and the idea was, well, I can do better than a clipping, right? Like I can do better than this magazine in getting these people attention and getting these people noticed. And so, but the problem that I began to encounter was whenever I was cold calling and I'd make the phone call, I'd call people, they picked up the phone, but then they hung up on me immediately. You know, it was very frustrating. Sometimes I was just able to introduce myself, and then bam, they had hung up. I just finished saying my name, bam, hang up. You know, and it was initially very discouraging, and I thought, you know, maybe it's just me, maybe it's just the fact that I'm a guy, and people don't want to talk to a dude. Maybe if they talk to a girl, that's better. And so, you know, I asked my wife to do it, and she started doing it, and she had the same response. What's up?
You going back in?
No, I was getting some drone footage of the building. Yeah. See you tomorrow. So, I had my wife do the calls, and then she was getting hung up on, although she had better success than I did in terms of keeping people on the phone longer. She was able to get them to at least introduce herself, and say her name and all of that. They still hung up on her as soon as she said that she was with, my company. And that was just frustrating. And I was just like, I get it. It's a skill, right? Like cold calling is a skill, and it's a skill that you can develop. You can get better at cold calling. That's something that people already do. It's a skill that people have. It's a skill that you can grab a course on and learn how to do it. There are people willing to teach it, and they just put on the sirens to go on a green light. Make it make sense. All right, so, cold calling is a skill. I figured there's two routes here. I can learn how to cold call better and improve that skill, or I can do something else. And I said, well, I hate cold calling, so what else can I do? And it was like, well, think about what's most natural to you, right? And so I started asking that question, like what would be a more natural approach for me to market my business, that's different from cold calling. Do I get an ad on these little penny savers? Do I run Facebook ads, right? And that would, of course, be natural because that's what I do. So what I ended up doing was just sitting down at a light on my car and ask myself the question over and over again, what can I do that is the most natural behavior to me, that would feel the most natural, that would provide value in my community and would leverage my skills? So I started a podcast. And in that podcast, the goal was I will interview people from the community, business owners. I won't pitch my product. I won't do any of that stuff. I'll just introduce myself. And at the end, I'll post their episode and get them visibility, get ideally more business for them. And it's like give them a win, right? And saying, come on my podcast, especially at the time, was extremely appealing to people. In fact, I was just using Instagram to DM people, and 100% of the people that I reached out to in DMs, asking them if they wanted to come on my podcast, came on the podcast. And that led to my business just taking off locally. And I just kept having more and more and more people on the podcast, interviewing them and talking to them. And they started to refer me business because they liked my vibe. They just vibed with me. And they would ask me inevitably, because I would buy them a coffee, I'd give them a free pair of headphones, and I had microphones, and it was leveraging my skills. It's what I knew how to do. And we would do it at the same cafe every single time. So the cafe started getting more traffic because I kept introducing more and more people to that particular cafe. And so, it was just a win-win-win-win-win all around. And it catapulted my business. In fact, even now, like after that, I started giving classes in different places and so on and so forth. And that, leading with free value, got me a ton of business, but nothing as much as that initial push with the podcast. And you can still find that podcast. pslflorida.com is the website it's on. And you can listen to the episodes that I shot initially if you want to. It's free. All right, so back to our whiteboard here. We did our why, we did our how, and then we did our how I got more customers. And that kind of wraps it all up. So there it is, bam. Our how, our why, our how, and how I got more customers. So that's what this YouTube channel is about. I'm gonna be talking about my journey as a business owner, how, just telling more stories of how I got there, but also just delivering valuable tips as to what I learned in the process, what I find that works, and just giving people what I wish I had, which was a roadmap. If they themselves, if you find yourself, you're like, you know what, I want to leave my 9 to 5. I potentially want to start a photography business or a drone flying business or a production business, shooting commercials and YouTube channels and social media or social media management. Like all of those things are things that I learned along the way and that I started doing and getting paid to do. But it all started with just being frustrated with my job. So if that's something that you find valuable, make sure that you like and subscribe. Subscribe so that you can get the notification of the next video as we proceed in this journey. And more than anything else, right? If you have questions about this topic, then leave them in the comments below, because that way I'll make content that is for you. And the benefit of a new channel is that it's small. So if you leave a comment, it'll probably be like the only comment there. So I will likely see it and very likely make a video about it. So drop a comment or a question below of something that you'd like to see, and I'll shoot that video and post it and tag it so that you could say to your mom, I'm famous, Mom. Look at me. I'm kidding. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one, y'all. Peace.